Hi, welcome. First of all, I want to thank everybody for coming today. Thanks to the judges, thanks to our esteemed guests. My name is Ryan. I'm here today with Michael, Mike and Matt, and we're from the University of Sydney. And we're looking today at Microsoft and the problems that are currently facing. And before we begin, I want to paint a picture. So let's cast our eyes back 15 years, where Microsoft dominated. We had rising share prices, where Bill Gates fast becoming the richest man on this planet. And we had a focus on MS Office Suite and development products in that area. Now, what did that happen? We saw people going to their office and into their homes, and they were using Microsoft Office, and they went into work and they used MS and Excel. But over time, we started to see something change. We started to see people walk into work, use Excel, and then as they leave, they would pull out their BlackBerries and check for their emails on their phones. We saw that develop, where people started to do more things on their BlackBerries as they could check their spreadsheets. And then we saw this development, and at that time, Microsoft said, look, we're not going to venture into this market. It's a cannibalization of our product. It's a cannibalization of our core competencies. And then came 2003. Now at this point, everything changed. Here we saw the introduction of the iPhone. And what that meant was that people were no longer simply going home and checking on their BlackBerries and their emails. They were starting to look at documents. They were starting to go into the core companies that Microsoft had previously decided themselves. Here we see profit margins drop from 2003 and then struggle over years as Microsoft started to catch up. On this slide, we see the revenue year on year fluctuating over time. At 2003, it drops and it maintains until Microsoft comes out with the Xbox and we begin to see profits increasing again. So what are we looking at today? We're looking at a new Microsoft. We're looking at a focus on two key competencies. We're looking at mobile and we're looking at the cloud. And it is the mobile focus that we are here to examine today. So as part of this concern, we've identified 4 key issues that we believe are underpinning Microsoft's current mobile development structure. The first one is the purchase of Nokia and integration of it within Microsoft One, within its existing frameworks and structures. Now, if Microsoft is to become a competitor in the device strategy, we think this is the key focus, and we look at this issue. We look at the ecosystem that underpins devices as we shift from Microsoft being a fledgling provider of mobile devices to a key competitor. We look at the conflicts that arise with vendors and the implications for the Android system. And finally, we look at throughout this process, we look at integrating core Microsoft culture. We look at developing ways in terms of promoting cross-collaboration. And on these 4 issues, we have the following solutions. First one, and this is throughout, this is a group-wide focus on cross-collaboration to promote Microsoft One, to promote the integration of Nokia, and to promote this innovative culture throughout. The second one is as part of this ongoing strategy with Microsoft Office, we promote the continued debundling of Office as we saw in March 2014 with the release of Office onto the iPad. We promote this in terms of Android and in terms of the iPhone on the mobile platforms. And finally, to improve relationships with the developers, to build a micro ecosystem so it is a viable option to support Microsoft's progression into the mobile space. Now I pass on to my colleague Mike, to Michael to take us away. Thank you.
That's right. I'm here today to talk a little bit about Nokia and the way that we think it could really integrate itself with Microsoft. So we have Microsoft, which has for a long time been this really key provider of software solutions to businesses and consumers alike. And we're bringing on Nokia, which is kind of similar to Microsoft, for a long time was the pinnacle in mobile hardware. I'd just like to see a show of hands. How many of you have a Nokia in this room today? 0. And I was sort of expecting that response. Nokia has sort of fallen from grace, and we're hoping that its integration with Microsoft will help integrate it and bring it back to its former place in the market. And in order to do this, we sort of saw that there were 2 main cultural dimensions that differed between American and Finnish culture. So when Hofstede talked about these cultural dimensions all those years ago when he did that study at IBM, he was talking about 5 key differences between different international cultures and the way that we can sort of combat them and help people work together despite the different cultures that they come from. And the 2 that we thought were pivotal and were very important in this case were power distance and masculinity and femininity. So power distance in this case, America is a country with a very relatively high power distance among developed nations. So bosses, give directives to employees and they listen. In Finnish culture, it's a little bit more collaborative. And as we can see with Microsoft and from the case, this collaborative culture has been lacking. So we think a way to deal with this is this 10% time that we'll talk about. And this combats masculinity and femininity as well. We want to look at quality of life at Microsoft rather than just sort of quantitative rewards for the employees. We want to create a culture where quality of life is valued purely over the economic rewards that people have for their work. And we think 10% time, 10% cross-collaboration time is a fantastic way to start. You might be familiar with this concept from a number of other tech companies which are perhaps known for being a little bit more innovative than Microsoft. So this 10% time, we thought we'd split it up a little bit differently to most businesses. 10% time in some other companies sort of involves working on your own on particular projects. But in order to foster this environment of collaboration and teamwork, particularly with bringing on a new workforce, a large workforce of over 30,000 employees, we really wanted to create a particular time of the working life where employees from different functions can work together on projects that they don't normally work on. So we would mandate that people from regular Microsoft functions like marketing, finance, operating systems, and the cloud suite work together with people from the device section of Microsoft now, which would contain a lot of former employees from Nokia. And we think employees working in these teams that they don't normally work in, but collaborating with people from the device section, which is Nokia, and people from the traditional business functions and software section, which is Microsoft. People working in these teams on different projects that they wouldn't normally work on is going to foster collaboration and innovation in a way that Microsoft's sort of bureaucratic process would not. So we think that is a really sort of a different way to look at the cultural issue of bringing two large companies together from different nations, and also dealing with Microsoft's cultural issue of being rather bureaucratic and slow to adapt to change. I'll now hand it over to Mike, who will delve into a little bit more detail about how we're going to deal with building a mobile ecosystem and sort of improving the mobile experience for Microsoft customers.
Thank you, Michael. So it's important to recognize that a mobile phone is not just the phone and not just the operating system on it. Apple recognized this when even though they had developed many of their own quality apps, it really was the power of all those individual developers that started pushing forward their own app development that really made the iPhone into the multi-purpose device that everybody started using it for. So what we have to consider in Microsoft's continuation in the mobile space is how do they work together with all of those app developers that can bring real value to owning a Microsoft phone. At the moment, Microsoft doesn't have particularly good relations with their app developers, and therefore one of the negative detractors of owning a Microsoft phone is that there are very few apps on it and they are pretty poor quality. So if we look at this idea, it really does seem to be a chicken and egg problem. If app developers can't access a large audience by developing for the Microsoft phone, then why would they develop quality apps? And if you don't have quality apps, then people do not want to purchase the Microsoft phone. However, as Google showed by bringing in Android and the Android Play Store, that they can really disrupt the system. The Android Play Store has over 1 billion apps and is larger than the Apple Store itself. So it's not only an idea of the current popularity of the phone, it's an idea of the perceived popularity of the phone, where the phone is going in the future. And we believe that Microsoft's strong integration with Nokia and their strong dedication that they will take a stake in the mobile phone space will provide a boost towards how they can tap into the developer market. At the moment, another side of it is that they are just difficult to work with. It's difficult to push a new development through to the Microsoft Store, and it is difficult to just get a quality app out there. Part of that is through their lack of experience in the industry and working with developers, and part of it just comes from a lack of good processes on how to process these developments from the individuals that create them. So in order to address this problem and to tackle the chicken and egg solution, we put forward a 3-step process that can be seen to operate over the short term, the medium term, and the long term. And the 3 steps are really to convert, to improve, and to innovate. Now, Apple and Google have shown that they have really developed the app market. They have grown it from a concept to something that is now prevalent in all devices. You can pretty much get apps for it. So they have developed that core competency of developers that can create apps. And there are such a large existing number of other apps out there that can be converted to a Microsoft device. The problem is that if we have these conversions at the moment, they're full of bugs and they're really poor quality. So what we have to address is how to improve Microsoft perception to convince the app developers that Microsoft phones are worthy of putting their app onto, and then how do we convert their existing products successfully to the Microsoft phone. The perception of Microsoft's position, as I mentioned, is really addressed by how strongly we're going to go into the mobile phone market and our dedication to the integration with Nokia. And if we put forward educational pieces on how to convert existing apps, we can quickly build up a quality app base of apps that boost the quality of the Microsoft phone. For example, if you want to play Angry Birds on your Microsoft phone, it becomes available. And it's no longer an advantage for owning a different product. In the medium term, we'd like to improve our processes on how we actually deal with these developers. And some of that will come from the experience that Nokia brings to the team in the industry. But really focusing on where app developers sit as part of our ongoing strategy. That is not only about Microsoft's focus on their few products like Office and so on that they offer, but really bringing a whole variety of apps to the market. And the third is to really innovate, to push the idea that Microsoft is going to innovate in the app space. And they can take some leads from companies such as Google by hosting development competitions, by encouraging entrepreneurial-minded students to really take on the challenge of developing for the Microsoft platform. And then they push their own association with quality apps. And part of that comes from debundling their existing products from only the Microsoft platform so that their name becomes connected with high-quality apps. And I'll now pass it on to for further development of this solution.
So what we really saw from all of this analysis is a real problem with the vendors. How we get Microsoft out there to really meet the needs of our customers. And if you have a look here in this very simple graph, we see that there's a big revenue stream. It's a big market to play in, but we're really not converting any of that revenue into profit. And we really wanted to look at why that was the case. And that was really to do with the vendors. No one was willing to participate in the markets that we wanted to engage in. No one was willing to participate in why we wanted to be a software platform, a device platform for the future. And we really wanted to see, in depth why these profits are not coming to us, where in all of our other long-term strategies, our other software platforms, they were really sold for us. And in reality, we're only seeing the word profit on this slide because Microsoft introduced Xbox. That is the only thing keeping their gaming and their devices channels out of the red, and that's because of a gaming platform for other users, not even on a device level. So what we saw from all of this is that with our vendors, it's a low margin market. It's weak, it's undeveloped. And in reality, from Microsoft's perspective, it's really small in terms of where we want to play and how we want to play. And when we looked at why it was small, it was because the vendors don't have the ability to develop applications, don't have the ability to have synonymity with having Microsoft on a device that is not related to a Microsoft platform or operating system. And when we looked at what has worked in the future, most recently, the idea that you can now operate Microsoft Office on your phone. If your laptop is died and you're on a plane and you can't continue your assignment, you can use it on your phone. Very ironically, it's the ability to be transferable that is what Microsoft is really trying to achieve when getting devices, Microsoft-related devices, into the market with Microsoft-related software systems. And we really wanted to spread them apart We no longer see the need for a Microsoft operating system or Microsoft Office suite only being used solely on a Microsoft device. We feel that that is not the way that we feel that the market should run. We feel that if we enable ourselves into the devices area, we can really get ourselves into that profitable stream. And to look at what Microsoft has done with Apple, is they're really trying to attune into what Apple is doing with driving market growth. And if we're even a 10%, a 20% or a 30% share of that in terms of what we offer in terms of our suite, that you can do your presentation on someone else's phone, or if your phone's run out of battery, you can potentially do it on the fly, on the train, anywhere else. That is what we're trying to achieve here with the new One Microsoft goal. And so for vendors, one of the really big reasons why we want to engage with vendors is to enable the customer. We understand that customers are very price sensitive, they're very fickle, they don't mind or they have preferences. And in reality, that is what we want to capture. There are probably 5 different mobile phone types in this room alone, and only one of them can use Microsoft Word. We feel that's a problem, and we want to see all 5 types of mobile phones be able to use our software so we can benefit and we can profit, and really tap into the core of what Microsoft is. And that is, in reality, having a product that can last a lifetime, is dependable, and we will seek profits from that. And that is why we want to engage in this industry with vendors. So we want to debundle our Microsoft Office suite. We want to disassociate, potentially, Microsoft Word, Microsoft PowerPoint, Microsoft Excel, away from Windows. We understand that Windows is there and it's already established, but we also want to re-establish ways people communicate, ways people present, ways people do business onto other platforms for better global communication. Then we want to engage the vendors. We want to approach them. We understand that they have an issue, that there's not enough time for them to be able to incorporate our profits into theirs. And so we want to engage the vendors to make sure that they can be a part of the team as well. We also want to employ Nokia in order to improve our services. We understand that we need a device soon, and we understand that Nokia will be a very big part of that in the future.
Thank you. So where have we come from, and where are we moving to, and what do we present today? We come from a Microsoft that was defined by bulky operating suites at a time where personal computers were this size. We've moved away from that. We've seen the rise of the smartphone, and at the same time the diminishment of the relevance of Microsoft. We've seen once a noble brand reduced to an afterthought when it comes to the mobile phone market. So we agree with the strategy of shifting to both the cloud and the device. Now we have not touched on the cloud because it's not the focus of this presentation, but it's this device market that presents its own unique complications and idiosyncrasies that Microsoft has not covered. Now we've seen the move into Nokia, and we believe that's a good idea. We don't believe they can take a similar approach as Google did with the siloing of Motorola when they bought that. We don't feel that that's an appropriate response. We feel that only through this cross-collaborative integration can we integrate Nokia through by bringing them within this one Microsoft family to promote innovation across divisions as they bring in their own knowledge that we have no access to. But that's not alone. Whilst we are developing devices, as we have discussed, the device is nothing unless it's got this support, this infrastructure, this network of apps and developers and community. Because as I know, if you took away the App Store and all you could do on your iPhone was to make calls and send messages, hardly any of us really do that anymore. So we believe that's essential, and by developing partnerships with these developers and helping initially to convert existing apps, and then as we go on, this development of the relationship so that there is an incentive for them to develop on our platform. We feel that this is the support structure that is so essential to building the device brand of Microsoft. And as the relationships with our existing vendors, we recognize this as a complication, and this issue will have to resolve as this scenario plays out. By engaging with them, and by helping them to understand, and by debundling Microsoft, so that not only are we developing our sole brand, but the idea of the quality of Microsoft can be embedded with the users of iPhones and the users of Androids. We believe that this can help to smooth over our relationship. So in conclusion, we agree the shift to device is a good one. It does raise its complications. We hope these solutions can help to negate this complicated role. Thank you.
The Q&A session. I'll start first. I heard the suggestion that you've given out, and I hear the reason why. And can you give me the any downside in implementing the suggestions that you put forward?
Absolutely. So one of the key downside risks that in particular with the rolling out of the Microsoft Office suite. So, as I outlined, people go to work and they use Excel and they use Word. And one of our issues was, if we roll out these core competencies, then what do we lose as a Microsoft brand? Is the operating suite even relevant if we take that away? But as the previous CEO said, that Microsoft cannot rest on its legacy of Excel. It has stuck to simply maintaining Excel and Word, and we've seen what's happened. We've seen a stagnating share price. There's no longer this type of growth that wants to define this company. So I believe that the only way that we could step forward was this process of rolling out, at the risk of diminishing the OS brand. In addition, the way we looked at it was, whilst we're rolling it out, we also don't think it will hinder or harm our existing business relationships on the desktop computer. Because whilst devices are focused, we still have this cash cow that is our business application. And the fact is that whilst I may use Excel at work, or whilst I may use Excel at home, I still have an iPhone, and that's not going to impinge that. So we didn't think that rolling out, and so you could get an Android phones or iPhones, would negatively impact upon the perception of business, and it was necessary for us to move forward.
I might just tack on to what Ryan said there. The other big downside risk that we sort of envisioned was this cultural risk of bringing two large companies together. And I think no matter how much you downplay that this time will be different, we've had a litany of examples over time of two large businesses coming together from different cultures, and the synergies not being realized that they initially expected. So I think that is a large downside risk, but we think that managing those two cultural dimensions we talked about, power distance and masculinity and femininity, will hopefully mitigate some of those risks.
Okay, in entering with the phone market and seeking the vendor's application in it, the measure of success depends on the critical mass being created. How comfortable you are in ensuring this will happen?
Sorry, can you rephrase the question? Is it about critical mass?
How to measure the success? I mean, in order to be successful, you have to have lots of subscribers into the phone. So what are the niche that make people from using iPhone to switch into Microsoft phone? Are you targeting at the new customer or the switcher?
I think there's a big niche that's been left in the mobile phone market from BlackBerry's demise. And I think the work-centered lifestyle that a lot of people have, and a lot of people with BlackBerries have, I know Ryan personally does, this gap's been left, and it's something that Microsoft, we think, can fill. So we've got this suite of products like Microsoft Office, Word, PowerPoint, Excel, and we really think that, of course, there's this new segment there that's been left by the exit of BlackBerry, or the almost exit of BlackBerry. But we also think there's the potential to convert people with existing phones. And I think Mike had a fantastic example earlier, when he's talking about providing this education to application developers to help them convert their applications to Microsoft's operating system and let them access a bigger market. So we think the solution to that chicken and the egg problem is really to boost the number of applications on the Microsoft system by providing incentives as well as education to convert existing applications. We think that'll really help clients switch across from other operating systems, as well as us tapping into this new niche of work-centered lifestyles.
And I made a list today, so I know in particular everyone at work, we use BlackBerries, we need to, it's just a corporate thing. And it sucks. Like reading, you can't open an Excel spreadsheet, you can't open a Word document. And to be honest, when you transition to iPhone, there are applications that work on iPhone for reading, but they're nothing like the experience that you get from a Microsoft developed product. And I think, to be honest, that historically they've done that on purpose, because you don't want, an iPhone. You don't want to use Excel on a Mac as well as you can on a Windows, because then where does your relevance come? So we think that with this fall of BlackBerries and this corporate sphere that has traditionally been used to these Microsoft products and struggling with them on their BlackBerries and their other products, I think this is a key market that we can tap into as BlackBerry rolls out of relevance.
But the BlackBerry user can be as well as can be an iPhone user as well.
Pardon?
The BlackBerry user can be an iPhone user as well.
I think you've got the potential for people to hold multiple devices in their pocket. I mean, if we look back, even for us about a decade ago, we would have all had the three things in our wallet were a phone, an iPod, and your wallet. And now we're getting to a stage where you can almost just have your phone in your pocket. It's your wallet, it's got PayPass built in, and it's also your music. And I think people would be very reticent to sort of transition to a multiple device sphere of having a BlackBerry and having an iPhone if they have this one device solution which the Microsoft phone will hopefully offer.
And to just go a little bit further in answering your question whether it's a niche market, we feel that it's not a niche market at all. We really feel that by leveraging the legacy that we all still use Excel today, and I know that my father used Excel when computers were really invented. It's something that we want to leverage as more than a brand, but also as a tool. And if we can leverage that in a really small and intrinsic way to lots of products globally, we feel that that will leverage that in a much more smaller and minute way, but in a grandiose scale, because then everybody still translates that legacy of what Microsoft has done to revolutionize the operating system of the desktop, but then how it will revolutionize everybody's transferable ability to use a phone and still be able to properly edit my document, and I need to submit it in half an hour's time. But they're the types of resources that we feel will benefit society as it continues.
So the short-term time frame is you are talking about how long? The duration? The tenure? What do you mean by short-term? The tenure of how many months, years?
Are you referring specifically to the app development community timeframe, or the timeframe of the general? Because I put up the short, medium, and long term for app development in particular, not as a part of the overall strategy. But if we're talking about just the app development, the short term would be within a year, when they can really build those resources and leverage off existing apps, and then the long term would be in say another 2-3 years, and then build up the capacities, and then really highlight Microsoft as the innovative force in the longer term.
You talked about convert, improve, and then innovate. Yeah. I think the strategy overall is to actually gain current market share, to really take a step and become the market leader in this. I think innovate is one of the key things. You focus a lot on integrating the different culture between Nokia and Microsoft. What about thoughts around current employees within Microsoft? I think in the case it was mentioned, there's a lot of issues internally, a lot of bureaucracy. So to drive this innovation internally within Microsoft, what are your thoughts on that?
So we've seen this happen in the example, the last case I read was the investment bank UBS, where they initially were structured into pillars, where the wealth management, asset management, and investment banking split apart, and they really wanted to focus this cross-collaboration process. And the issue is the same thing. Why am I going to help you if it's taking time out of my time to assist you when I may not get the credit for it? So as part of our cross-collaboration, and it didn't come up in our presentation, but what happened in this other case, which has worked quite effectively, is this cross-group awards, where teams and employees are recognised for their efforts in working with other divisions. So no longer are your KPIs structured around individual group performance, but you highlight when people have used their initiative to work across fields and to create things within Microsoft. We feel that not only rewarding people based on their individual performance, but specifically targeting this cross-collaboration and the benefits that can come from that, we believe that may provide an incentive for people to work with each other.
One question. Microsoft used to be, one a leading company of this field. I understand now with the technology and with the iPhone and stuff, they are lacking. So, say I'm the CEO, what should you suggest me to do? The leader of the field again, or seems like we are catching up to technology? What's your suggestion?
So you're saying, do we
Should we be leading the field again, or should we?
in what sector? Sorry, in terms of
this
in the mobile space.
We could be just catching up to technology.
I think it's quite obvious to say that Microsoft did miss the boat on the idea of getting into the device market and making sure that they were an established player before the market really boomed. And I think it would be a fair statement to say that we will be catching up for quite some time, at least not necessarily in the programming or the software, at least in the devices. That's obviously why we bought up the 32,000 employees from Nokia, and we really want to establish some synergies with that. But also, we also feel that obviously other growing markets such as cloud software, we feel that that's somewhere where we want to be the industry leader and innovator, because it is still a growing product. It is something that is still not fully understood or utilized by companies globally, and we feel that it is somewhere we are able to focus our efforts once we enable ourselves to get back into not a dominant position, but a position where we're able to compete in the market of devices and other device software.
So we're looking at that in kind of the medium term, because as we said, we're on a back foot at Microsoft currently. We're cashing up. But I think throughout the case, it mentioned discord within management, saying, what happened to the days where Bill Gates was this rising star? What happened to the days when middle management made millions of dollars off stock options and shares? So we think long term that focusing on being the market leader will drive this cultural shift, because that's what people at Microsoft, we believe, are looking for. They've come from this history as the most profitable and the fastest growing company in the world, to now this stagnating beast where they kind of fluctuate between different products and flip between them. So we think that by focusing on this and by striving for innovation, by striving to be market leader, that will not only help them focus their strategy, but act as an incentive for the employees within the firm.
And it can be seen from their success with bringing out the Microsoft Surface product, that even though they had limited experience with devices in the past and they were competing on a back foot with the iPad, that they have managed to bring out a highly successful product that people desire. So they are able to catch up and become the innovators in the future once again.
So thank you very much, University of Sydney.